I had a workshop. I'm down in Washington with all these people, provided prompts. We're going to get up on stage. We're going to tell a story. And this one woman was like, I don't have a story. I don't have a story. I don't have a story. Well, she got up on stage and made everybody cry. And I think most people think a story is seismic shift event. And it doesn't have to be that, but it can be something that shaped you and you carry into your work, whether you know it or not. And once you recognize that story, then you understand why you're this kind of leader or the kind of stories you can share that inspire other people.
Welcome to Badass Softy, a podcast for leaders who are unapologetically ambitious and want to lead with heart because you're allowed to chase big goals without losing what makes you human. I'm your host, Dr. JJ Peterson, and today on the show, I talk to my friend, Tricia Rose Burt. Tricia is one of the most incredible storytellers I have ever met. She started in she working with Fidelity kind of in her career and then realized this isn't the space I want to be in. So she was in the boardroom and then said, I want to be a storyteller. And she talks about how that process happened and what came out of it. But now she works with The Moth, which is probably the largest, most famous storytelling organization in the world, I would argue, and goes in and helps companies and leaders to tell their own stories in a way that are incredibly powerful and build credibility and are about the founder's story, all of those things that really matter in the business space and personal space. And in this episode, what we really talk about is how to craft stories that matter, that get people's attention, and also really about why creativity matters. So if you've ever thought, I don't know if I have a good story, or I don't know how to tell the story of our company in a really powerful way, I think this episode is really going to help you lean into your stories in a whole new way. So with that, I am so excited for you to listen to my conversation with Tricia. So with that, I am excited for you to listen to my conversation with Tricia Rose Burt. Tricia, I am so excited to have you on the podcast because A, I adore you as a human being, but B, you truly are one of, and I don't mean this lightly, one of this era's greatest storytellers. And I know we can include with a whole bunch of other people, but you have been on The Moth multiple times. You worked for The Moth, teaching businesses how to tell stories. You worked for StoryBrand, going out there helping them clarify their marketing message with stories. I have watched you share your stories in a way that invites people to be more themselves, invites them to be more creative, inspires, encourages, teaches. And you have taught me along the way how, as I've listened to your podcast and I'm on your email list, and you have taught me how to be a better storyteller and to step into creativity in a really powerful way. And you truly are a badass softy, and that is why I wanted to have you on the podcast. So welcome so much. I'm so excited for you to be here.
I know, I'm so tickled, and I love that term, badass softy, man. That's a great term. That's and also very fitting. It's fitting.
Well, for you too, my friend, for you too.
I mean, my whole life I was told you're too sensitive, you're too dramatic. And yet, yes to both of those things, but it was not an asset growing up. It was not. It was a major liability. And then now it's what makes me really good at what I do. And I think what makes, everybody talks about this and, but the key to being a good leader is vulnerability. The key to telling a good story is vulnerability. And so it is that balance between being the badass and the softy.
How did you get into storytelling, and when did you start to realize, oh, this is a thing that I want to do, whether it was for yourself or for other people? I know it started kind of for yourself first, but go back to what drew you into story, and what was that moment where you're like, oh, story is powerful?
Well, first of all, I have to say that one time I was at my mother's house. It had to be a decade now at this point. And I found all these old papers, and there was a poster I apparently had drawn. Maybe I was 8, something like that. It was like, please come see me in a play. Thursday at 1 p.m., Tricia Burt. And I thought, nothing has changed. Nothing. But I did take like a 40-year detour, right? Because that's who I was. And then you get talked out of it, right? And society pushes you in different directions. And your family says that's not very smart, or that's not logical, that's not practical, be on the path that's safe, conform with everybody else, blah, blah, blah. So I did all that conforming. I did all that safe stuff, and all of it blew up. All of it blew up. And I ended up going to art school in my mid-30s. And I remember walking into art school knowing I was like leaving everything I knew, but feeling like I fit in for the first time because no one fit in art school. And I'm like, oh, this is the point. You're not supposed to fit in. This is great. So finally, it took me a while to find my tribe of people. I was an artist I'm getting to answering your question. I was an artist for like 10 years, and then the market crashed. And no one was buying visual work anymore. No one was hiring consultants anymore. And for some reason, I thought, oh, I know, I'll go into performance because that's so lucrative. Like, it made no
stable.
sense. It's very
classically
stable.
Financially stable. Yeah.
It's very stable. It makes a lot of sense. It's a real practical road to, follow. But I'm like, I just had those marching orders. I'd had a one-woman show in my head for like 13 years. And then, everything went to hell. And my husband just looked at me and said, would you just do the show? I was like, okay. So I did it. And what was interesting about taking that risk, the big ass risk, I had no idea what I was doing. And I became this artist. It was funny because while I was being an artist and doing visual work, my work kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I then finally realized I wanted to be the art. Like I wanted to be the one on stage, not just hang a picture on the wall. And, also I was fighting against, as many people do in various capacities, like I was raised never to draw attention to myself. So I was fighting. I had to unlearn all of this, conditioning of how, particularly as a Southern woman, just do not draw attention to yourself. And then I kind of went, well, somebody has to draw attention to themselves, and it might as well be me. But anyway, so I did this one-woman show, and it got the attention of them off.
Live storytelling on NPR, it's on NPR. This is gigantic if you haven't heard about it.
And so I had the very good fortune of working with them. I was on stage telling stories with them. And then they figured out I had this business background. And they're like, hey, you want to go help teach our folks, businesses around the country, how to teach leaders their first-person narrative stories? I'm like, sure. And so I started doing that with a moth, and then I hooked up with you folks at StoryBrand and really, honed my craft with you guys in a whole nother way.
Why do you think it is so important for leaders and people in business to be able to articulate their own, obviously articulate their business story, but their own personal story as well? What have you seen the power of what that happens when people do that?
When we compartmentalize ourselves, we're just diluting things. Right. And so I can remember talking to this one gentleman who I first started working with. And it kind of just had never occurred to him that these personal experiences he had were really informing how he was operating as a leader, why he was interested in what he was doing. He just kept it so separate. And if we keep things separate, it loses the richness of our experience. And so if you can, you're not just a business person, you're a person. And you're in business, and you've had all these other personal experiences that can be really useful, either in conversation with clients, or in conversations with your staff, with your team, and also just sort of knowing, why are you doing this? I've been working with a think tank down in Washington, bunch of economists with their PhDs, lovely, lovely people, so smart. And I started asking them, so why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And it was almost like they hadn't thought about it in a long time. They hadn't remembered why they got into this in the first place. I literally said to this, I had a workshop. I'm down in Washington with all these people. I said, I provided prompts. We're going to get up on stage. We're going to tell a story. And this one woman was like, I don't have a story. I don't have a story. I don't have a story. And so I sat and I visited with her a little bit, and I asked her a couple of questions, and she was like, well, maybe this. Well, she got up on stage and made everybody cry. But her original thought was, I don't have a story. And I think most people think a story is, it's been life or death. It's been some just huge, life seismic shift event. And it doesn't have to be that, but it can be something that shaped you and you carry into your work, whether you know it or not. And once you recognize that story, then you understand why you're this kind of leader, or the kind of leader you can grow into, or the kind of stories you can share that inspire other people.
It's one of the things I talk about on here a lot is the idea that as a badass softie leader, you have to have your own point of view. You have to actually come to the table, and that comes from understanding of who you are, what created you, and what type of leader you want to be.
Yes.
And part of that, why I think that's so important, something you just mentioned is one, it reminds you of the passion of why you do things, which is so important when it comes to sustaining oftentimes hard and laborious work. And so when you understand the story and how to tell pieces of your story in a way that connect with people, that bring wisdom to the situation, you actually are now more valuable than ever in an age of AI and an age where all of these tools, quote unquote, and machines are going to replace us. AI will never have a point of view. So when you understand how to bring your point of view and your story to the table as a leader, it not only makes you more valuable, but it actually moves your company forward and your team forward in ways that you could never do by just plugging in information into an AI machine to help you make a presentation that might have a lot of great information, but doesn't have any connection or wisdom. So one of my questions would be, when you're working with people in this capacity and helping them kind of discover some of these stories that maybe they do end up applying to their work environment or not, but they're learning from, what are some of those? You said you do a workshop. What are some of the prompts that you offer people that might say to themselves, people listening right now might go, well, I don't have a story. What are some of the prompts that you offer that help people bring out some of those stories?
You can do easy prompts. First, best, worst, last. First time you got rejected, last time, when you do the easy prompts, right? The ones that just get you thinking about a vacation, an experience, whatever. Normally what I'll say to people is, it depends. If I have a workshop with a client who says, we want to make sure they go in this direction, I normally teach people how to do personal storytelling first before applying it in a business situation, because it's easier to do a personal story. It's easier to do a personal story. They're not thinking so hard that, and I always try to say, what's the story what's your go-to at the dining room table, at a cocktail party, at a here or there? The story you always tell, the story that, makes you tear up or makes you cry or makes you a little bit sick to your stomach. Like, you start with those. Like, what was an important point in your life that you talk about? Or I can do prompts that are like, when was the first time you realized that your work mattered? When was the first time that you surprised yourself with something that you didn't know you knew how to do? It's all these kinds that'll get under the surface a little bit for people. And so it just gets them thinking. Now, they may not answer the prompt, and I don't really care if they do. I just want them to get up on stage and tell a story.
Well, I think that's so key to understand, is that people have way more stories than they think. And especially when you're put on the spot, a lot of times, like in a work environment or something like that, you're like, how do I make this interesting in the moment? But if you can actually take some time to go through some of these prompts for yourself and go like, when was my favorite vacation? What was my best gift that I got for Christmas as a child? When was the time I felt alone? When, just kind of like the
all
last, first,
things.
best,
Absolutely.
worst are really thinking in those terms. And then applying it to your work and going, why did I get into it? What was the moment? That's even what I asked you. I was like, let's go back. Why was story important? How did you get there? And that allowed you to share that. And when you ask those kind of prompts, even of yourself, and start thinking through those. When I first got into speaking on stages on a regular basis, I actually wrote down, I still have it in one of my journals, 15 stories that I knew that crushed at parties, like my go-to stories that I went to, and I wrote them down. Now, most of those, to be very honest, have never appeared on stage before, but I have them at the ready. So when I'm preparing a talk, when I'm preparing a connection, I have these there that I can pull on. And one tip we can give everybody is, if you feel like you don't have a story, to be able to actually give yourself some prompts and write them down. Even if it feels cheesy to you to have these stories at the ready, they're not cheesy to the people who are hearing them. They are hearing them for the first time, and it builds that connection.
Well, and also I tell my clients all the time, first of all, you mine for stories, you mine for them. Where are they? What are the stories that I have at the ready? And then you build on those. You need to have I would encourage people to have an inventory of stories that they can pull from depending on where they are, because it just makes total sense. I mean, I literally just went through a workshop with folks telling the origin story of their company. I'm like, so what are the stories that you want to work within that origin story of that show, show versus tell? We know that. Does your audience know the difference between show versus tell? Should we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, talk about that for a second. Yeah, when you're telling a good story, the difference between show versus tell.
So there's a great story a guy named Tim Manley on The Moth tells, and he's talking about he's an English teacher. It's first day as a teacher in New York, high school teacher in New York, and he describes his high school principal, and he doesn't say he's scary looking. He says he's a former punk rock drummer with full-length sleeve tattoos and a perpetual frown on his face. So by showing us how he's scary, we all have a picture in our brain, as opposed to saying, he looks scary. Like, okay, well, what does that mean? Or I was scared of my principal. Well, what does that mean? So paint that picture for us. Think about it is the scene, like painting the scene of why, instead of saying, again, I was happy. I was laughing so hard I wet my pants. Whole different thing than saying I was happy. You know what? It was funny, whatever. So trying to give some detail around, not just telling it, but showing it is really important. We also, when you're telling a story, it's like, we want to know about the hard moments. We used to say all the time, it's great that you climbed Mount Everest, but what we really want to know is the moment you wanted to turn back. That's what's interesting. It's interesting, particularly if you're a badass softie, particularly for business leaders out there. We want to know, when did it not work? How did you get through the stuff that wasn't working? That's interesting. Not that, and I won 5 awards. Who cares? I want to know about the part, stories inspire people. They move people. They call them to action. They're very important.
And connection, especially in this day and age, matters more than ever. And it is, I believe, absolutely a differentiator in leadership and business. And I think why this matters, some of the things, that you and I both know, is that everybody who's listening, when you're in business in particular, or you're an artist, you and I have talked about this, you're creating something out of nothing. Whether you're writing an email, right? Whether you're writing for an email that's going to go out to sell a product, or creating a website that talks about your company, or you're leading a meeting, those things have never been created before. Let alone like when you're talking about music and art and books and putting your story out there in an artistic way. Those things have never existed before. You're creating them from scratch. And so often, I think, and this is, I want to put this back on you in a second here, is often when we don't mind the creativity in these other spaces, like in storytelling and in poetry and in creating, painting or drawings or just being silly and whimsical, when we don't mind creativity over here, then when we all of a sudden sit down and go, well, how do I write this email? We think, well, we'll just be creative with it. And it's like we put a lot of this pressure on us to write this thing that's going to sell a $10,000 product that we have no idea how to do it and all these things. And yet we haven't put in the work and the creativity and mining the creativity that was in us. And so some of what you do obviously is, I think, really powerful in this just purely storytelling aspect of things. But what is it about bringing people the creativity out in people that allows them to do other things and bigger things down the line?
I think, listen, I think the world would be so much better if we had a lot more, poets and a lot more violinists and a lot more, straight up artists. But what we need are more creative problem solvers. And so when I talk to people about their creativity, it's a lot about getting your brain nimble so you can creatively problem solve. When I first went to art school, there was not a more rigid person on the planet. I mean, my thinking was just so like they our first exercise was like, they were like, write your name on it, write your name on a piece of paper. And I'm like, oh, I've got this. And I like wrote my name over and over again in like just lines. Like there weren't even lines on the paper. I just imposed them in my head, wrote my name over and over again in straight lines. And I look at other people and they've got like these big names and it's like graffiti and it's like all this stuff. And I'm like, Tricia Rose Burt. I mean, I just like, bless her heart, just so rigid. Give me boxes and parameters now, please. And so I think, we have to learn how to be playful again. We have to learn how to be creative again. And that's scary stuff, man. That is scary stuff. And I, if even me, I have a podcast called No Time to Be Timid, where I am constantly telling people to put their creative work first. I will have to go, stop it. Do not go, fill out those emails and whatever. Go like make something in the studio. Just go use your hands. Just go make a pie. Just go do something that is getting me out of my head, into my body, into that creative self, because the benefits will be, the work I do will be so much richer because I have filled this creative well.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's exactly what I wanted you on, because I just think reminding people that first off, you have a story to tell. And being creative with that story and making it interesting. And then even if it's not about the storytelling, just being creative in general, all of that is going to make you even more of a badass softie. And yes. I am just, again, that we could talk for hours, but I'm so inspired by everything that you've done and are continuing to do. And if people are interested in working with you, learning to bring you, having you come in and work with their company to help their leaders tell stories or bring out that creativity in people, how can people get in touch with you?
TriciaRoseBurt.com. If you put in Tricia Rose Burt anywhere, I will show up. Tricia Rose Burt, B-U-R-T.
Well, I love it. Well, thank you for being here. And thank you for being a badass softie and being my friend.
Thank you for leading us, JJ. It's so nice to see your handsome face. Thank you so much.
Wow. Tricia always inspires me. And if you're interested in hearing more from her, don't forget to go listen to her podcast, No Time to Be Timid. She has incredible guests on there. She's incredible. It's so fun and so inspiring. The thing that I'm going to take away from today's conversation, beyond just the storytelling, is the whole idea of leaning into creativity as a tool that helps me become a problem solver in other areas. Whether you are leaning into story, crafting stories, or painting, or gardening, or baking bread, I think it's so important to always kind of get out of our own heads and really use our hands to create something. Every year, I have committed to being creative and getting outside of my own head and using that space that doesn't have anything to do with my business, but that creativeness over here on this other side, kind of outside of expanding areas of my brain that allow me to be creative in my own business. And, one of the things that I do with my company is I actually go in and I help people be creative with their stories. I help them be creative with their marketing and with their own personal stories so they can write a book or create a course with their own IP. And I have found it so valuable to help people experience some general creativity first. And that actually opens up a whole bunch of new areas in thought and thinking that allow us then to be creative with the stories that we're telling on paper. So I want to just encourage you to lean into something creative. You don't have to do it well. You don't have to do it perfectly. Nobody may ever even see it. But be creative, because when you're creative with art, it allows you then to be creative in problem solving and creating things in your own business. And so I'm going to leave you with this. May you trust that you already carry stories worth telling, even the ones you've overlooked because they feel ordinary or unfinished. May you have the patience to mine them gently and the courage to shape them with care. May your stories build connection first and let credibility follow naturally behind. May you make something with your hands, paint or plant or build or tend, so your mind remembers how to experiment, adapt, and solve problems with curiosity instead of fear. And may you never doubt that your singular experiences matter, because the stories only you can tell become the very thing that may help other people feel seen. Because we believe you can be both ambitious and kind, fun and driven, powerful and deeply human. May your leadership inspire, your success have soul, and your ambition make space for everyone. That's why you're a badass softie. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Follow and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. BadassSoftie.com is crafted by Fruitful Design and Strategy.